is the greatest team sports winner in the history of team sports.
And Schefter, I saw your tweet last night going all the way back to the beginning of this, that when Tom Brady decided to leave New England, there were really only two teams that went after him. For those who didn't see it, pick up on that thought, Schefter.
Well, first of all, Dan saying he's the greatest player in sports and the quarterback is the most impactful position. So if we're going to take what he said and apply it to last offseason, all I could think about as I'm watching the game last night is when he became a free agent, there were teams that thought about making a move with Tom Brady. But in the end, ultimately, when he became a free agent in mid-March, there were two teams that seriously pursued him. The Los Angeles Chargers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So there were 30 other teams that thought they had a better quarterback solution than going out and getting the greatest player in NFL history at the most impactful position, a man capable of changing your entire culture. How could 30 teams take a look at a guy where you didn't even have to trade any picks to New England? You didn't have to give up any compensation. All you had to do was hand your program to him. And there were two teams that wanted to do that. Two. Okay? The rest looked past him. They all thought he was too old. They all thought he looked washed up in New England in his last season there. They all thought he wouldn't be able to do it at the age of 43. And once again, I think one of the things that drives Tom Brady is proving people wrong. And now it's proving people wrong at the age that he's doing it at.
He's the first player to win Super Bowl MVP for two different teams. I have a sheet of things that he has done now that would take me the rest of the show to read them all. But let's then get down to the next order of business, because TB12 is the story. But that's not why the Buccaneers won the game. They won it because of the other TB's 11. Todd Bowles, the defensive coordinator, and the guys who played defense for the Buccaneers last night dominated Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Listen.
They beat us pretty good. The worst I think I've been beaten in a long time.
We knew they wasn't physical enough. You know, they real gimmicky on offense, and man, we don't play like that, man. We like smash mouth football. We like coming downhill, getting in them trenches. That's what we built off. That's why we're the #1 rush defense in the league, and that's why on the back end we strapped up, man. So we knew we wanted to blow them out. We knew whatever we gave them in that first game, it was because we gave them. And Todd Bowles wasn't letting that happen this game.
They kind of took away our deep stuff. They took away the sidelines, and they did a good job of rallying to the football and making tackles. We weren't executing early. I had a few miscues. We weren't on the same page. But I mean, credit to them, man. They played a heck of a game defensively and offensively and beat us.
They most certainly did. So, Dan Orlovsky, I'll start with you from a quarterback's perspective. There's so much there. I see the look on your face, RC, and I agree. But, Dan, I'll start with you from a quarterback's perspective. What happened? What happened last night to what we thought was as good an offense as we'd ever seen?
Yeah, it's the first time I've ever seen Patrick Mahomes look human. And that's because it was the most one-sided line of scrimmage Super Bowl I've ever seen. You know, this was about the quarterback having to play faster than he wanted to. This was about the offense having to play faster than the play was set up for it to be. And that's because this defensive line was absolutely dominant and the coverage matched it. And as a quarterback, when you have to play faster than you want to, or you have to play faster than, like, everyone's saying, well, why isn't Patrick Mahomes getting the ball out? Because the receivers are like 3 yards downfield. The play hasn't developed yet, you know? And so this was about Todd Bowles realizing he didn't have to get too creative, but he couldn't be lazy either. That was the most impressive thing from the defense, was he knew his front four was going to be dominant, but he didn't just go, hey, guys, line up and go win the game. He moved guys around. He put Vita Vea at defensive end and Jason Pierre-Paul at tackle and rushed some of those weaknesses of the offensive line. But Patrick Mahomes looked human, and it was the first time I've ever seen it.
All right, Dominique, let's talk about this defense, because we knew the Buccaneers had a good defense. We talked about them all year. That's a good defense, but they're not the 85 Bears. But the last 3 games, to a point Dan made earlier, they shut down Drew Brees. They made life miserable for Aaron Rodgers, and they dominated Patrick Mahomes. How did they do this?
Yeah, in those other two games, it was a lot of scheming, I think, by Todd Bowles. In this game, it didn't feel like as much scheming. They were playing some really heavy and deep coverages and zones. But what I was most impressed by was their D-line's ability to contain Patrick Mahomes and their secondary's ability to cover deep, because the Chiefs' offense is very well designed. But also, when plays break down, that's when they're at their most dangerous. When the plays broke down yesterday, it felt like the defensive line were still getting to Patrick Mahomes, not letting him have as much time as he wanted. And when he would throw it downfield, people would seem like they were open, but by the time the ball got there were 2 and 3 guys diving in front of the receiver. So it was a really impressive athletic performance and confident performance. 9 points for this offense. I couldn't have imagined that before that happened last night. It was not something that I thought was in the realm of possibility. I could see the Chiefs potentially losing, but 9 points and no touchdowns, that's not just Todd Bowles.
Right.
That's just the talent that they have out there.
RC, talk about it. What did they do? What did you see from that defense last night?
Remember we talked about this last week, though, when I was talking about the rosters, and I said, listen, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a better roster, and it was mostly because of the defense. We knew that top-heavy, the Kansas City Chiefs were top-heavy offensively with Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and Travis Kelce, but I thought defensively that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were just so much better than the Kansas City Chiefs were. And when you listen to Devin White talk after the game, that's a dude who believes what he's saying. And remember, he mentioned Todd Bowles against the New Orleans Saints as well. This does not happen without that Week 12 matchup. If these teams don't see each other that week, if Todd Bowles isn't humbled a little bit, if this defense isn't a little upset about what happened that day, I don't think that Todd Bowles makes the changes that he made to play the cover 2, to disguise more, to disguise the blitz and fall back into the zone, the way that they played the scramble drill. Those things don't happen if you don't see the Kansas City Chiefs one time before this. And when you think about Todd Bowles, when you think about the adjustments, one person you look at is Carlton Davis. Carlton Davis shadowed Tyreek Hill. They made Tyreek Hill a team problem, not a Carlton Davis problem. And once they did that, the entire game changed.
And super quick, Dan, and we'll have more time to talk about this. Go ahead, Dan. Finish up.
Yeah, hitting on RC. You know how many times Tyreek Hill was played one-on-one in coverage? 0 the whole game. Now go back to Week 12. We could wrap this game up simply like this, Greeny. When you own the line of scrimmage, you own the football game. And Tampa Bay owned both lines of scrimmage. Y'all remember like 6, 7, 8 weeks ago when Bruce Arians got up after a game and said, we can do whatever the heck we want to, and we all were like, you watch the same game as us? They did whatever they wanted last night, and that's because they owned the line of scrimmage.
It's impossible.